Do you remember that time you almost dropped your friend's brand new smartphone? Or the time you almost missed your flight? Whoopsie moments happen all the time. They are unpleasant instances which could have caused mayhem if they actually happened. But we all make mistakes. We are humans after all, and to err is to be human. Though there are some instances which to err may cause utter destruction and annihilation. So here it is, 7 times technology almost destroyed humanity. For this list, we picked up the most dangerous occasions which could literally have ended the world. Instances of poor communication, technical difficulties, or a simple short circuit which could launch a massive nuclear warhead for no reason. The order is chronological rather than hazardous, so let's take a moment and appreciate the fact that we are all still alive. We are on the verge of the Cold War, the time when the Russians and the Americans were holding each other's balls in case someone made the first move. Tensions were really high, and both sides were feeling uneasy. In the 1950s, the USA had built a series of early warning radar systems which were designed to detect Russia's nuclear strikes. On November 24, 1961, all communications between the radar sites and Strategic Air Command suddenly went dead, signaling an attack. To make matters even worse, the SAC had discovered that the phone lines were also dead, cutting off their communication with NORAD. When 3 radar sites disappeared from the map, B-52 bomber crews started their engines ready to launch. Radio contact was eventually made with a B-52 fleet on airborne alert over Alaska who confirmed the false alarm. It turned out that all radar sites and phone lines were routed through a single relay station in Colorado, which had overheated and shut down. At the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, a guard at Duluth Sector, Direction Center, spotted a shadowy figure climbing the security fence. Quite rightly, he activated the sabotage alarm. The sabotage alarm set off additional alarms at all surrounding Air Force bases. The problem, however, was that one base, Volk Field, Wisconsin, the wrong alarm went off. And as you may already guessed it was the alarm that signaled the start of World War III. The timing couldn't have been worse. The USA was at DEFCON 3 for the first time in its history, and bomber crews were at full readiness. Knowing that there would be no practice drills while DEFCON 3 was in force, a squadron of nuclear-armed F-106A interceptors started to take off. Only a single car running down the runway and flashing its lights prevented the plane from taking off. Someone had incorrectly wired the alarm systems at Volk Field and mixed up the sabotage siren with the World War III has just started siren. And the original intruder? A curious bear. With America and Russia fighting proxy wars in Afghanistan, South America and Southern Africa, tensions were once again high in 1979. At 0850 hours on November 9, 1979, the Pentagon, NORAD and the SAC watched in horror as they saw an unmistakable pattern of the Soviet nuclear attack appear on their screens. Launch control centers of America's Minuteman ballistic missiles received a preliminary launch warning and started working through the launch sequence. For a full 6-minute period, the entire US military headquarters were conceived that they were under a full-scale Soviet nuclear attack. The entire Continental Air Defense Force was put on alert and a number of planes launched. The President's Doomsday plane, the National Emergency Airborne Command Post, also launched. Back in 1979, the missile defense and warning system was stored on a good old-fashioned tape. A careless technician had loaded an attack simulation tape into the system, by mistake. Just over 7 months after the last close call, the USA experienced another underworld-changing false alarm. Under normal circumstances, America's missile alert systems at NORAD would display 0000 ICBMs detected and 0000 SLBMs detected. On June 3, 1980, this changed. The display was now showing that 2 missiles have been launched, and then 200. Obviously, this wasn't a good thing. The president was informed, and an immediate meeting at the USA top military advisors was scheduled. It still led to the nuclear bomber crews starting their engines and the launch of the Pacific Command's airborne command post. Silly enough, it turned out that a computer chip costing less than $50 had failed, causing this slight error with potentially enormous consequences. Yet another Cold War misunderstanding between the usual suspects occurred. This time it was the other way around. On September 26, 1983, the Russian missile detection system reported multiple ICBMs had been launched from the USA. The newly installed system was more accurate than previous methods and relied on a series of Russian satellites monitoring the horizon for silhouettes of American ICBMs. Deep in a Soviet nuclear bunker, one man, named Stanislav Petrov, had to decide whether to respond with a full-scale nuclear retaliation or whether to wait it out. Lieutenant Colonel Petrov decided that it was more than likely a false alarm, saying, "When people start a war, they don't start it with only 5 missiles." His boss, Soviet Chairman Andropov, was renowned of his mistrust of the USA, and it is highly likely that if Petrov had declared the satellite warning valid, such an enormous report could have provoked the Soviet leadership into attacking. The false alarm was due to a naturally occurring phenomenon around the autumn equinox. Russian satellites, the Sun, and the USA's missile fields aligned at exactly the wrong time. Now, this oopsie moment is quite different, yet it could be very devastating not just for 2 superpowers, but for all humanity. A European biotech firm had developed a variation of the Klebsiella planticola bacterium designed to turn food waste into alcohol, which could be used as fuel. The idea derived from the early 90s food and plant waste problem, as scientists found a way to turn food waste into something useful. The genetically modified bacteria were designed to produce ethanol from food waste, with the leftover sludge being converted into fertilizer for use with crops. So far, so good. The USA's Environmental Protection Agency had tested the bacteria thoroughly and had concluded that it posed no harm to humans or the environment. Only by chance, an Oregon State University academic decided to test the bacteria in non-sterile soil to monitor the effects. Had the scientific skeptic not tested the bacterium in a real-world scenario, we'd probably be all dead by now. In unmonitored crops, the bacteria spread would be out of hand, and humans would have made the biggest disaster ever conceived. The cause? When it was tested in non-sterile soil, Klebsiella planticola killed every single plant it came into contact with. Had the bacterium been released, it would be spread worldwide and destroyed every single plant on Earth. This is the only time humanity had an oopsie moment without being a nuclear matter. Nonetheless, it was the closest call ever. On January 25, 1995, Norwegian scientists and their American colleagues launched a rocket designed to study auroras, the Northern Lights. You see where this is going? To the Russians, the rocket looked exactly like an American Trident nuclear missile and followed the same trajectory as a deliberate satellite strike. The estimated flight time to Moscow was under 10 minutes, which left very little time for the Russian Early Warning Center to decide whether World War III had just started. The next day, Boris Yeltsin stated that he had activated the nuclear football, a device that allowed the Russian president to communicate directly with his top military advisors. The Early Warning Control and Command Center switched to combat mode. For almost 10 minutes, Russia was armed and ready to end the world with a fire flame ball of death. While you would most likely think that the scientific team from Norway did not bother to inform the Russians, they did. Actually, they had informed 35 countries of its intended experiment, including the Russians. The news had apparently reached the Russian Defense Ministry, but hadn't been passed on to the early warning personnel. Which was the most oopsie moment of these? Did we miss any? Share your thoughts in the comment section. See you the next time.